Video game companies are extremely successful these days, so my question is, why do they keep trying to self-destruct? Alright, it's no secret that in the news lately, we've had a lot of companies making interesting decisions that, as a consumer, I just cannot understand. Because as far as I can tell, this is the healthiest video gaming has ever been. If I'm not mistaken, video games is sometimes calculated as bigger than the movie industry. You know, people used to think of the movie industry as things that games could like aspire to be like. But now they've, as far as I'm aware, surpassed the movie industry, and there's way more profit to be made in video games. I don't know if it's way more, but I think there's a lot of money to be made in the video games industry. And so the companies that are interesting to me as a video gamer and a musician are companies like PlayStation, well, Sony, Microsoft, who own Xbox, obviously, OpenAI, Meta, Nintendo, and then, like I say, as a musician, I'm also really interested in guitars, and companies like Fender. Every company is just making really bizarre decisions. So one of the bigger recent controversies, obviously, was Sony announcing that they were going to stop making physical discs for their console, which they sell you as a more expensive option if it has a disk drive. So they're actually selling a product. I don't know if they've discontinued it already, but the PlayStation 5 that I bought it because it has a disk drive. And I think some lawmaker in Brazil is actually suing Sony because they're like, well, you made us pay extra for this thing that you're not actually going to support and make media for. So what's going on there? So obviously the discussion about Sony and PlayStation discontinuing discs is a big issue. But obviously, like, Xbox is also suffering. It's like they don't know, like, you know, they're way below the amount of money that they're supposed to be making or had predicted that they would be making at this time. And like, Xbox is part of Microsoft, which is the company which is developing Copilot, which is their AI, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a technology that is driving up the price of memory. And as a result of the increasing prices of RAM, that's going to have a knock-on effect on this hardware product that Xbox wants to make, a new console, which I think is being called Project Helix. It just sounds like there's too many cooks trying to spoil this broth. And one person's like, we should make a new console. The other person's like, we should make everything subscription only and make everything an Xbox. It's like, well, if everything's an Xbox, then why should people buy an Xbox? And everyone's just stirring this pot. It doesn't make any sense anymore. Nintendo also, it's like, we're incredibly successful. Everybody has a Switch or a Switch 2. I think it's like one of the most big selling consoles of all time as far as I'm aware. So as far as I can tell, Nintendo is not struggling. But then they're like, maybe we can patent the idea of capturing monsters. This is like, what is this? Are we going to start are we bringing all of our video game mechanics of every video game that comes out, and we're going to bring them to the patent office? It's like matching 3 colored tiles. Can we patent that? Capturing monsters and forcing them to do battle for us. Can we patent that? It's like, I don't know. So I'm just kind of confused about why companies that are successful, I'm not talking about companies that are struggling, why are companies that are successful, why are they choosing to self-destruct instead of just succeed? Why don't they just continue succeeding? It's not like they're short of cash or anything, and they're letting go of human workers anyway, so they've probably got more cash than they ever had before, unless maybe they're just paying a lot in severance and then paying more money to rehire all the people that they thought they could get rid of but ended up not being able to get rid of because AI can't actually replace them. I'm really confused, and that's on the video game side. Now, if you follow my music channel, or if you are interested in music at all, you may have also heard that in the music world, there's a controversy where Fender, even if you don't like music, you've heard of Fender because they make the guitar that was like right there at the beginning of electric guitars. You know, Leo Fender was like, I'm going to turn a lap steel into a guitar you can actually hold and plug into an amplifier. And lo and behold, we have the Fender Telecaster and the Stratocaster. They're trying to copyright the Stratocaster as a piece of art. So it's not like, okay, they tried to trademark the design. They couldn't trademark it, so everyone else made Stratocasters as well. And Fender's like, well, maybe we can copyright it as a work of art, like 70 years after we made it. It's like, can you really really enforce your copyright on something that you let people build their livelihoods around for the past 70 years? It's like, I don't know, like maybe if you wanted to win that copyright battle, maybe 70 years ago was a better time to do that. But at the same time, that's how copyright law works. So maybe they can actually win this and get a copyright over this work of art, which actually was just a commercial product. And that's the same thing with video games, the whole monster catching thing. It's like, well, I don't know, we just need mechanics in our video games, but are we going to patent the idea of going through a menu like attack, item, run away? Like, is that something you can patent? Does that mean no one can ever make other RPGs? It's like, where does it end? And what I really want to ask is why? Why have companies decided to self-destruct by suing other companies out of existence, or just making decisions that really upset all the people who like love your company? People loved PlayStation. I'm using past tense because I loved PlayStation as well. And it's not that I hate PlayStation now, but I'm just not sure if they're going to course correct on this. So my fan power, the amount of fandom in me for Sony PlayStation is kind of shaky right now, which is really sad because I loved Sony products up until now. I had a Sony, I never actually had an official Walkman. I had like an Emerson Walkman. That's what my parents bought me. But eventually they did buy me a Sony Discman, so I can't complain too much. But I had a Sony Discman. I have a Sony MZR55 mini disc player. I had the Sony, it was called the Dream Machine. I had a CD player by Sony, and it would play CDs to wake me up, and it was called the Dream Machine. I bought it at the Sony shop, at the Sony Center in the UK. Anyway, I had a Sony camcorder. My first YouTube videos on this channel ever was shot with a C116E Sony camcorder. I loved that thing. Like, oh man, I could go on and on about how much I loved Sony. And I just can't understand. Like, how can they just look at all the goodwill that they've built up over the years and go, we should capitalize on this and make our company even more successful, and then look at that decision and go, nah, let's get rid of the disk drive. Like, I understand that digital is the future, but killing off disk production for a console that is still being made now. This is still a current console. I specifically bought a version with a disk drive because I wanted the flexibility of buying games, selling games, handing games to my friends, being able to borrow games from people who didn't want to play the games that they had bought already. That is one of the main reasons why people still have consoles in the digital age. Otherwise, we would all be Steam only or GOG only. We'd be PC only people. But we're not. Console still has various benefits, like the console itself is usually cheaper than buying a full-on PC. That's probably going to change. But also they usually have a disk drive, which means that we can buy games, sell games, pass them on to other people, share them with each other. I just can't understand why Sony would make this decision. Like, they had the better decision, which would be, okay, PS6 will not have a disk drive. It's obviously not the future. And then we'd be like, okay, now we can choose to not buy a PS6, but I can't choose to not buy my PS5 because I already own it. I made a video about how difficult it was to get a PS5. In Japan, you couldn't even get permission to buy one without signing up for a credit card. I signed up for a store credit card, and as a foreigner in Japan, that's really hard just because my name has Roman alphabet letters in it. That was really difficult, but I went through all the hoops and jumped through everything so that I could get myself the permission to buy a PlayStation 5 with a disk drive. I'm confused about why this is happening. On the music side, it's even more baffling because this Fender situation, it's like trying to trying to copyright the design of the guitar, which is like, to some extent, like, this is just the shape that guitars have to be. Like, there's got to be a place where I stick my strap on the left side and a place where I stick my strap on the right side. And as a result, these guitars have horns now. If every guitar that has a horn here and a horn down here so that you can actually access the rest of the neck, do we always have to pay some licensing money to Fender to make a guitar with that shape? Like, why isn't there a copyright on the original guitar shape, like the Dreadnought one that's just like a giant acoustic guitar? You know, is there a patent for that, or a copyright for that, or a trademark for that? I'm just so confused, because I get it. Like, you can make risky decisions as a company if you think you're going to make big gains. But what I don't understand is why the companies doing it are the companies that don't seem to have any real issues at the moment. They're all doing very well. As far as I'm aware, Fender is like the most well-known guitar company on earth, right? Even when people were saying that you could buy cheaper guitars with better quality, I still was actively trying to buy myself an expensive Fender. That was still a dream of mine, because I grew up hearing about Fender. You won't be able to wipe out guitar history from the past 100 years, 70 years at least. They're all playing, not all of them, but a huge number of famous people that you loved who played guitar for you, they probably played it on a Fender. So this company that's like doing very well, they're like, should we just capitalize on our success? Nah, let's make a crazy decision that's going to make people either hate us forever, or we might make some small financial gain out of it. Same thing with PlayStation. Same thing with, it feels like with Nintendo, with like every company, not every company, but it feels like in my world, which is video games and music and art and photography, it just feels like every company is just deciding, well, we're doing very well. Let's take a giant gamble by seeing whether we can get everyone to hate us. And if they don't hate us, we might make a little bit extra money. And I can't understand what kind of thinking would lead to that. I have heard that one of the things that does cause this to happen is private equity. But I don't think all the companies we're talking about here are actually being bought out by private equity. I think, is Sony? Sony's not owned by private equity, are they? Nintendo? I don't think they're owned by private equity. Fender, I think, has been bought by Servco. I don't know if that counts specifically as private equity, but my very, very basic understanding of private equity is that companies with a lot of money come into companies that they think they could improve, make more profitable, take the money, and then leave. And then when they leave, the company is like in a better position. But from what I've seen, even when this has happened, it's usually they leave the companies as more of a husk of what they used to be. And then these companies that aren't private equity owned, like I assume that Sony owns themselves and Nintendo owns themselves, they're just making bizarre decisions. Just like, I don't know, how much money is there to be made from this? And what happened to just, I don't know, letting other people succeed as well, and that makes you want to make a better product? I can't understand at what point companies just decided that making a better product so that they could get back into the race was just not in their interest. It seems like when you're losing a race, you have two options, right? You can run a bit faster and you can catch up with the people who kind of overtook you. It's like, okay, so let's say that you make game consoles, but then Sega makes a better games console, and then you run faster, and then Sega can't keep up, and then they end up selling their gaming business entirely, or they've decided to go into making games and not making consoles anymore, right? So they either quit or they run faster, and then they keep, competing, right? It seems like the option that people choose these days is just, I'm gonna pick up a hammer and I'm just gonna smack my opponent's knees. It's like, okay, I guess like maybe there was a time in history where that worked. Maybe you could just do that. You could just like smack your opponent's knees, break their legs so that they can't run anymore, and then you can run faster and then you succeed. But I don't know, maybe it's just me, but in 2026, it doesn't feel like the world works that way If it did work that way, I'm actually a little bit surprised. But it certainly doesn't feel like it would work that way, because if you do something either just to piss off your own fan base or to like break the legs of your opponents, it doesn't even matter if you win. Even if you break your opponent's legs and you get to be the only player in the race so that you win by default, you're just going to lose because your reputation is so destroyed that no one's going to want to buy from you anyway. What worries me is that maybe there's enough evidence behind the scenes that companies can do this and get away with it. So that you may have seen recently, there's a large controversy with a company called Bricks and Minifigs. I'm not going to comment on the situation itself because I just do not know enough about it. But I have been watching the videos about it. It was actually said, I think, in a letter that was leaked during the Bricks and Minifigs thing. I think they had sent to all of their franchisees a letter that said, we've been told that, if we just wait, these things tend to go away after 30 days or a few months. And what worries me the most is that maybe that's true. Maybe on the internet we are all convinced that we are united. We definitely don't want to let Sony win and kill off physical media, and we're going to keep fighting with our wallets, and wow, Sony is losing so many fans, and Xbox is not making any money, and Nintendo is losing their lawsuit, and nobody wants to buy Fenders. I'm actually a little bit worried that none of that's actually true, and that actually the reality of the situation is that when we're on the internet, we think we're winning, but actually what's happening is that after 2 or 3 months, all of these companies are going to discover that the backlash does disappear and that they can actually just continue getting away with doing whatever they want. For example, taking away our digital licenses for things that we already paid for, and they can make up whatever excuse they want. It's just like, oh, we don't have the license for that anymore, and so if we don't have the license, we can't offer you the digital license. So not only will you not be able to re-download it, it just won't be accessible at all on your system. We're just going to delete it. If that is actually what was happening, that's kind of messed up. So really, I want to end this with a question. Why have all these companies decided to self-destruct instead of just continue winning? It seems like every company has a way of just winning if they just play the game normally. Is that just too boring? Or is there some unknown threat that we don't know about? Because as far as I can tell, you wouldn't act this way unless there was some serious threat. And I just think we don't know what that, if there is a threat, I feel like we just don't know what it is. Like, this can't just be greed, because if it is actually greed, none of these decisions make sense. It's like, I think we could make a bit more money if we make everybody angry. It's like, we know that's not going to work, so we should probably not do that. You would have a meeting in your company, and everyone would just go, yeah, we might make a bit more money, but that's obviously a bad idea. We're all going to lose our jobs if we do that. It looks like those meetings either never happened, or someone came into the meeting and said, look, guys, AI is coming, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And actually, that when is 2027. Let's say that it's decided that AI is coming, and if we don't go all digital by that point, PlayStation as a brand might disappear. Like, oh, okay, that sounds scary. In that case, I could understand why they would make a decision like that. But I think as consumers, as gamers, as just regular people trying to enjoy our lives and even like have the permission to spend our money and buy these things from these companies, it's just not clear to us why our favorite companies are acting like there's some massive Godzilla-sized threat coming for them, and they're acting as if like they've got to do everything they can to stay afloat. Like, these are multi-billion corporations, like they've got a lot of money, so why are they acting so scared? What scares me is that maybe there is a reason to be scared, and I just don't know what it is, and I would like to know what it is, because it can't just be AI is scary and we think it might be a big deal, so let's make some changes. Like, there has to be something more to it than that. But I honestly don't know what it is. And I would, if you happen to know what it is these companies are scared of and why they would make such massive plans to like self-destruct instead of just continue getting the win on pretty much every front? I would like to know. So let me know in the comments section below if you have any ideas. That's all from me today. I've been NihongoGamer. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'll see you real soon.